Welcome to MV Ranch. I'm Mary, and this is Mike, and we're building our home in the beautiful foothills of Northeast Arkansas. This is our cat, Henry.
November the 1st, 2023. Here at Riverside Kubota, we're here picking up our new attachment for our tractor. We're going to be putting on a hydraulic posthole digger, and we're going down Cooley Hill here heading to the farm. Right before we cross our river, we get to see a little bit of the mountains, Arkansas mountains, and fixing to get there here in a little bit, but get to tell you a little bit about our new purchase. Leaves are starting to change this fall. Not a lot of color, but they're changing.
We've got us a hydraulic posthole digger, a Dan Hooser, or Dan User, however you say it. But anyway, that should make life a little simple. Digging post with an auger that's hydraulic. A lot easier on this old person.
And it's one that goes in front of the tractor instead of behind it. So
Yeah, it's
a little more stable that way.
Yep.
Can you tell I was a little excited about getting there? We were on the way back, or away to the farm with it and everything. And but how I come about choosing what I chose, number one was Dan Huser or Hooser, however you quite say that. I'm not real good about saying it, but it's 100% U.S. made.
It's made in
And
Missouri, right?
that means more than a lot of times your product. Sometimes, I mean, yeah, your quality of your product matters, but it's really important to try to buy U.S. if we can. Support our local people, and
We usually go and visit the house site when we go to the farm. So here are some pictures from this visit to the farm.
this is the driveway. The driveway from the gravel to the house is a little over 1,900 feet. It'll be a long driveway, but it was most of it is already established before we got there because it's my father-in-law's farm and it goes to the family cemetery.
When we got there, we looked at the pole that's already there, and Mike noticed that something was a little bit different about it. Yeah, here's a look at the cows. We always kind of check up on the cows too.
What was different about the pole was that we had transformer on there, so they've been doing a little more work for our electrical line, which is a long ways to go, but they're getting there.
They still have two poles that they have not put up yet, one by the road and one by the silo. You're going to see a picture of that one a little bit later on. And the number for the Dan Hoosier was a
His model number is EP615. It's the smallest model, but it's the what my tractor can handle. It's a little slow. There's the transformer we finally got. It's a little slow than I thought it would be, but it's doing the job. That first hole we drilled, I was rather disappointed at first, but when you stopped and thought about what we were digging in the old driveway that's in front of my father-in-law's house. We're practicing on him. We're saving it, I guess, till we learn how to do it on our own. I guess I don't know. It wouldn't just work that way. That way, we wouldn't really uh, using them as our guinea pigs, but what helped him out a little bit.
well, you're going to see some of that footage a little bit later on, and he'll be explaining some of that too. But we're on our way home after our first trip to the farm. We just want to bring it and keep it safe. This is what the fields look like now after the harvest in southeast Missouri. We're on our way back to the farm, going across Cooley Hill.
Again, we're going to help my father-in-law with building a fence. The reason why he's building or adding a new fence to his property, me and Mary had talked about not having to open so many gates to get to our house about that, and wanting to build maybe a fence along the driveway. And Mary's dad got to thinking about that and thought that was a pretty good idea. So we're gonna try to help him get that little fence built, so that way he won't have to open any gates. He's 92, and I guess he's a little bit tired of opening gates, which I don't blame him. I probably got tired of it a lot sooner than he did. uh, this way it'll make it much easier on him, and so they won't have to open some gates to get back to the driveway. They just a little short jog of a fence. Really, it's no longer than, well, I think it's about 285 feet of fence.
Some of the fences are really out of repair.
Yeah.
It's difficult to keep up with them, and moving them to the other side of the road closer to the house for winter time is a very good idea. So that
Well, and
is
not to mention it helps us because we're on the opposite side of the road where the cows are now, and keep them out of the concrete that be in our house site might be a good idea until we get our fence done. But like I said, fall colors are changing, but not too much orange and yellows, a lot of brown in our area. But there is a lot of beautiful trees in people's yards and stuff.
and we have a surprise on here in just a few seconds. Something to show you. There's the pole that hadn't been put up by the silo. That's what it looks like from the silo area. It's really beautiful.
Well, we're end up putting in that short stretch of fence. It goes up a hill, so he's going to have a couple of gates.
Surprise! James is back. He came with us this time to help us.
Yeah, he always seems to be around at the right times, thank goodness. But yeah,
We're taking him up to see the house place
yeah.
so he can see what's going on. Taking a look around, noticing some of the changes. And then we also had to pick up the big trailer to put all the posts and things on too. So we would have them with us while we're working, because we had rebar and post and drills and
all the necessary tools you got to have to get a job done. And when you some your stuff's at one place, when you some your stuff's at another place, it's kind of hard to get things done. So you make a lot of trips back and forth till you realize what you really need.
we're getting kind of tired of having our stuff not all at the same place
Yeah.
too. So for this job, it was going to be right there handy.
Yeah, and it does make it easier when you. Of course, once we get moved up there, it'll be hopefully a little more organized.
All right, time to hook up the post hole digger for the very first time.
Well, we was taking it off the pallet in the back of the little trailer and setting it on the ground, and that way I could hook up to it. It was on the trailer upside down on that pallet. We had to get it on the ground and flip it over so I could hook up to it.
Oops.
But it's a 12-inch auger. He asked me what size I wanted, and I think 12-inch. From watching some of the other videos on it, 12-inch would be better because you don't want it too small, because that's the whole purpose. If it's too small, you're still back to using the PhDs, as my father calls it, posthole diggers.
I was watching closely to see how he hooks it up in case I ever need to hook it up by myself.
It can be done. The hardest part is not the hooking up the hoses; it's lining up and to hook them to the actual.
And this is where we saw a problem. And James got Excited because as soon as he starts trying to use the hydraulics, it started spraying everywhere.
Yeah, apparently one of the hoses wasn't tight from the factory. I guess I kind of probably should check that, but
So we took it back to the tool shed.
back, back up we drove where the tools are this time. That would make it a little easier, but it didn't take too long. Just needed tighten. Just one of the hoses was loose. So
I have to admit, I was a little bit worried.
well, I was kind of at first too. I thought, well, maybe one of the fittings wasn't correct, or it just kind of fell off the trailer or off the pallet when we was picking it up.
We
I
were
thought maybe one of them got damaged.
we were watching to make sure that there were no runs, no drips, no errors.
Like I said, that's the EP 615 with the 12-inch auger.
All right, so we're ready to go. Taking off to mom and dad's.
A poor little old tractor. You think it was by looking at it, it's been around for a long time, but it only has a little over 130 hours on it. So it just needs to be inside a shop one of these days. I'll have one of those so I can kind of keep it a little nicer. Just a little bit of a drive from our driveway to theirs. Actually, from our house site to their house, as a crow flies, it's about almost half a mile.
Yeah, we just live on a couple of foothills away, or as Mike calls them, mountains.
Well, when you're from the flatlands, they're mountains, so you
They're
know.
all mountains. Well, here's James and Mike. They're trying to get ready and get all their equipment ready, and we're fixing to start drilling for the first hole.
Which is our toughest hole that we faced that day
Yeah,
because, like I said, it was partially in the driveway right there, and there was a lot of gravel, and you can see it as we just start. And I was trying to tell James to scoot back. He was getting a little close, and I just want to be on the safe side, nobody get hurt.
it's a little hypnotizing. The more you watch it, the closer you get. Because even James had to tell me a time or two, Mom. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting too close. Taking pictures.
It took a while to get it in there, but I would have never been able to have done it with a PTO one. PTO one would turn it faster, but you don't have any down pressure. That was the whole reason why me getting a skid steer attached hydraulic one, so that way I can put some downforce on it with the tractor. Of course, you don't want to have to put a whole lot, but this is it takes a while. We dig a while, and it's a learning curve too because we get to a point where we have to pull it out, and there'll be a big rock that the bit will be hitting, and so it took a while. We got the hang of it better.
I think at the beginning I was kind of just worried about something breaking. I wasn't
Yeah, it's
wasn't worried about how far the hole was supposed to be uh, or anything like that. Just didn't want anything to break.
not to mention we had a little bit of an audience
Oh
too,
yeah,
and audiences usually makes me nervous more than anything else. But they were curious just like we were watching. So that was Rebecca and her dad. So
yeah,
which they were working on trying to take down part of the old part of the fence.
yeah. Dad was taking uh, the gate connectors, what makes it swing, off of the old ones, so that because they're going to be placed there eventually, and they were trying to get them unscrewed. You're going to see a picture of Dad here in a minute or two.
It seemed that when we got to that spot right there, that's kind of when we hit the big enough. Or there were bigger rocks enough that the center of the shaft wasn't. It was just sitting on top of it.
All right, so he's building an H brace.
Yes, we're building an H brace. This is my first attempt at building an H brace in a fence. I've never really had anything to do it with or any of the knowledge. So I've watched several YouTube videos, and everybody has different approaches. And so I went with the idea of using rebar to help hold the H part of the brace on both ends. And like I said, I've watched several of them. Some of them use the long GRK screws, and I think next time I might use some of those. But until I get rid of all my rebar that I bought, I will use those. But it worked good. It's just that you got to make sure you're lined up square with it, or else you can make a mess of it. But we drilled holes all the way through both of the legs of the H brace, and then just drove a piece of rebar about 11 inches plumb through the outside post into the H cross brace, and then from there uh, we done the wire that goes from the bottom side of the post that because right here what we're doing is we're going to have a gate between these two H braces that we're building now. So you want your top wire or your top of your wire that bands them together facing the biggest end of it facing the gates.
We found out how expensive that bit was too, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't bought a auger bit, and $30 for a drill bit. Whew. But necessary evil to get the job done. But trying to get things as level as possible, and we're using Mary's dad's existing post for their corner post, you would call it. So, and of course, it's up on slightly on the hill, so it looks like we're putting it at the bottom of it, but it's quite a bit of it's about 3 foot difference from that one post to the other. But he's gonna have a gate hanging off this end here. There you can see my wire that I was talking about. You wrap it around the post a couple of times and try to get it tight. Like I said, this is my first one, so it was a little loose, but we take a piece of rebar and wound it around there and leaned it up to the top of the H there and I seen one of the videos they put a um, staple in there to hold it. So, in that, I thought that was a good idea. That way, nobody gets hurt.
And we finally got to drill the second hole.
Second hole went a lot easier. And when I got to the bottom of the hill down there next to the creek, it went real fast because it was, is in the middle of the field. All this right here has been drove on, even this one, but it's not as bad as the other one.
Yeah.
Or the other. But that's 18-foot gap across there because he has two gates. He does have the double gates there at his driveway, so we're reusing them there. So two 9-foot gates, like an 18-foot gap. So
You see that back wheel lift up every time he pulls that out of the ground, and when he hit a couple of the rocks that were 2 fist wide, it kind of jerked the tractor. That was a little scary looking.
well, what it is, it gets hung up in it, and then I try to lift it out, and it's just lifting the back tractor tire off the ground. So I wouldn't get and come plumb crazy with it, but could you imagine trying to dig through all that? Them roots with a Posthole digger, handheld.
Yeah, we were really thankful we didn't have to
Yeah,
do that all by hand.
it had a lot of rocks, but not as bad as that first one.
And James and I kept running up there with a post hole digger or a shovel or something and trying to get the rocks out of there so we could keep digging.
Yeah, like I said, it's the lesser of the two models, but whoa, somebody had
Oops.
a camera attack.
I must have seen a rock.
But it does a good job. Like I said, it saves a lot of manual labor and saves on my shoulders and my back.
Well, he's already had a cortisone shot in his right shoulder, and I really didn't want him to have surgery or get hurt trying to put in a fence. So this was a much cheaper thing to buy than hurting him. I was all for it.
I was for it until I seen how much they were. They're not cheap, and they've gone up in the last 2 or 3 years because I kind of eyeballed one a couple of years ago or so, probably before the 2020 COVID mess. But it's gone up quite a bit. It was about 1,000, almost $1,500 more than what I was expecting to pay for one. But I tell you what, it's pretty doggone handy. James kept wanting to pull like he was going to pull the whole tractor up to where it was going to be. If he just motioned, I could have done it all by myself there.
He was
He wants,
trying to get it straight.
yeah, he wants to help, but that tractor, he can't pull the tractor.
He was lifting those poles like they were nothing.
Yeah, he was very helpful. Trust me, he's got more muscles than I ever had. Him and his brother both. They both played ball in school, so I played the trumpet and potato chips.
Well, James is much better with math and numbers and measurements than I am, so having him there to uh, measure how deep the hole was and helping his dad in that way and cutting rebar and hammering in some of the rebar, that was very helpful.
Yeah, you can see how that one started going down. It was a lot quicker.
This is kind of where Mike figured out exactly where he wanted us to stand at so he could see. He was having trouble seeing the hole.
Well, I was watching one side of the tractor for the auger and then getting my directions on the other side. So I asked James to move around to the other side. So at least did stop the auger. But you can tell how much faster we went down in that once we got past the rocks. It goes a lot quicker.
Oh, it hit some red clay and it went sloop.
Yeah. Yeah, I measured those. They said to have them about 8 feet, but I also watched another video where a guy said, you know, make it a little short of your post, and that way you can make it exactly tight as you want it.
This is
But
where
as you can see on this end down here, that piece of rebar didn't go all the way in because James drove it in, and it must have hit a knot, and it went out. Almost missed our H brace. But there's the final look of the two H braces.
I think it turned out really well.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have to go down the hill to the other end to have it braced.
I had to clean up a little around the other existing fence there, but not get eat up with briars and thorn bush.
It really doesn't look like it's that far, but it is. This is the little path that I took catching the bus, and there was a little footbridge that went across the creek. Nobody else can probably see it, but I can. And these little critters were biting us.
Yeah, they look like a ladybug, but
they're mean.
They got a little bit more of an attitude. They must be man bugs instead of ladybugs.
All right, back to work. At least for Mike.
Well, actually, James probably had the hardest part of the job.
All right, so this is the 5th pole that we're putting in. Well, James is putting in anyway.
I dig the hole, he does the manual labor.
That's the deal.
It seems to work out that way.
And I'm running the camera, so I'm good with that.
It didn't take very long. Once you get down there at the bottom of the hill there, that's a lot softer dirt. Of course, it's next to the creek, so that would make sense too, and it's down the hill. We're going to put a 16-foot gate in there. We haven't bought it yet. Or Mary's dad hadn't bought it yet. I'll go pick it up. But we'll do a couple of H braces there so that way the fencing, and once we ain't got the other ones done yet,